So upcoming Friday nights, me and the degenerate boys that we are, we're coming back with the betting show.
You look at the way he bounces off tacklers, the way that he keeps his eyes downfield, his vision, his ability to find holes, his pass catching ability, right? Because he had.
In my lifetime, I'd put him at probably around the 2 area, with, again, the only other person up there being King Ricky.
Anthony Richardson or Caleb Williams at the 111.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of B.S.ing Sports here on the B.S.ing Network, where we do a little BS and we talk a whole lot of sports. Jake, I think I slowed it down enough for you that time. With me, as always, on my Eagles recap shows is Ryan. Ryan, how you doing today?
Pretty good. You know, Eagles got the W, so it's always pretty good. Flyers also, you know, we'll get into them as well, but
Yeah.
Pretty good today. I have worked every day since November 18th, minus Thanksgiving.
Sounds exhausting.
Yeah, I was tired yesterday.
But I can relate.
Yeah, I got that second win today, so I'm good.
That's good. Good. Glad to hear that. So obviously this is an Eagles recap show, a Philly recap show. So let's just get right into it, right? The Philadelphia Eagles beat the Baltimore Ravens 24-19. The score is not indicative of how that game went. To say it was a 5-point game is... I want to say something right off the bat. People are going to say if Justin Tucker doesn't miss those kicks, that the Eagles lose this football game. And I 1,000% disagree with you, because if they have to score more points, I have zero doubt in my mind that they score more points. They didn't need to score more points. The Ravens scored a touchdown with 3 seconds left on the clock. Get off of it.
Yeah, so I agree with your sentiment that last touchdown was garbage time. So the ultimate result of this game wasn't as close as it appears to be. I watched that game, and the Eagles did exactly what they should have done. They took advantage of Baltimore's mistakes to win that game. However, Baltimore lost this game more than the Eagles won. 7 points off the board by Justin Tucker. Lamar Jackson missed an absolutely wide open Isaiah Likely that would have converted a third down. He missed Mark on the first third down stop. He missed Mark Andrews up the right side of the field where there was nobody within 20 yards of him. He was running all alone. There were just so many mental mistakes, a lot of them by Lamar Jackson, but by the Ravens as a whole. And the Eagles did exactly what they should have done. They capitalized on those mistakes from a good team. If the Eagles are a bad team, they still find a way to lose this game. But the Eagles are a good team. So they went into Baltimore, who was considered a Super Bowl contender in the preseason, and won the football game. And that's all that matters. But I don't think they would have won as easily as you make it sound.
See, I feel like they do. The defense, you're right.
And the defense played well in the second half. In the first half, it was more so the Ravens kept screwing up on offense.
I would agree with that. But the defense really kept them in check. Outside of the one long run on the last drive of the game, they really kept Lamar Jackson stuck in the pocket. They made the decision that he was going to have to beat them through the air. Mm-hmm. And to your point, mental mistakes. He doesn't even look at Mark Andrews' side of the field on the one that you're referring to, and then misses a wide open Isaiah Likely. I agree with those things. And you're right. If the Eagles were a bad football team, they lose this game. But this game looked like the Eagles, especially on the defensive side of the ball, were dominating. What's up, Pete? From almost start to finish. Outside of the first 2 drives of the game, it looked like the Eagles defense had figured out everything that the Ravens wanted to do, and they executed to near perfection. Again, last second touchdown doesn't make it indicative of how I felt the game went.
Yeah, and you made a great point. They kept Lamar Jackson in the pocket. They did a fantastic job of that. And that's the second, running quarterback will say that the Eagles have done a fantastic job of that with. We saw it against Jaden Daniels. And, to me, I said on our preview last week, I said Lamar Jackson is a different level of what Jaden Daniels is. And I think that's still the truth, but they did the same exact thing. They kept him in the pocket, and they forced Lamar to use his arm to beat him. And that, maybe that's what caused, not necessarily what caused the errant throw, but, Lamar having to stand in the pocket time and time again, something he's not used to doing, to have to sit back and throw the football. It's not, they made him very uncomfortable. So yes, I think the Eagles defense played very well through stretches of this game, but I do think that there were certain opportunities the Ravens had that they just did not capitalize on, especially early, that could have turned this game sideways.
I do agree with that. Again, talking about the defense, I'll bring the banner up. Lamar Jackson statistically didn't look like he had a poor game, right? 22 of 36, 237 yards, 2 touchdowns, and he ran for 79 yards, most of it on that long run on the last drive of the game. But again, eye test, you and I talk about the eye test all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Eye test, he was so uncomfortable in the pocket.
Yeah.
Like, the Eagles 4 sacks on him in this game. They made him uncomfortable the entire time. 3 sacks.
You say they. I have one particular individual in mind. We gotta post the pictures of us next to this guy so we can overlay it when we talk. Jalen Carter has been an absolute monster on the defensive line, and it's not always showing up on the stat sheet, but we referenced last week in the Rams recap, he was double teamed on like 80% of his snaps. The same thing was happening again, particularly on the downhill running plays. And I was watching the film on Jalen Carter on a thread on Twitter. This dude was like taking Tyler Lindenbaum, who is a first round center and a very good player, and just chucking him with one arm. It was insane. He was wreaking so much havoc on Lamar Jackson and in the backfield on the running game. That reverse they tried to run in the first quarter was not having any of that. He was so explosive and so quick and recognized the play like that. Jalen Carter, I think, was the best player on the field this game.
Jordan Davis had his – I'm sorry. Let me follow your statement up with 100% agree with everything you just said. I also want to point out that another Georgia defensive tackle, Jordan Davis, had his best game of probably his career on Sunday as well. Again, doesn't show up on the stat sheet, but he was a really big deal in the run stopping. Now, we got to talk about it, right, because everybody else is talking about it. There's a lot of videos going around. There was not a single holding call called on the Baltimore Ravens on Sunday afternoon. And you look at some pictures and you look at some videos and you're watching Jalen Carter break through this line and very clearly getting held. It's almost like the referees just won't call it if it's against Jalen Carter because he's so explosive and he's so fast that they've got to do something to give the offensive lineman an opportunity to be able to compete with this kid.
I genuinely don't want to believe that's the truth, but I mean, after that debacle last, with the Chiefs game and the Raiders on Friday, anything's possible at this point.
Don't even get me started on that.
Yeah, we won't get into that, but yeah, I mean, he looked good as a rookie last year, and then like very, very early in the season, we were kind of like, okay, he's had his moments. Like the Saints game, he was fantastic, but the first 4 or 5 weeks as a whole, it was like, okay, he hasn't really like taken that next step yet. No, this is the next step, man. Jalen Carter the last month and a half has just been an absolute force, and kind of reminds me of Fletcher Cox when he was young, except a little better.
Closer to Aaron Donald, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that the ceiling is at that point. Like he could very well be that. He's crazy, man.
Listen, the Eagles were lucky to get him at 9. Obviously, he probably would have been the first pick in the draft had he not had the off-field stuff. But the NFL's got to be looking at the Philadelphia Eagles and Howie Roseman right now, right? Like, let's talk about another guy that fell in the draft, right? Let's talk about Cooper DeJean real quick.
Yeah, there were all kinds of reports out that the Eagles drafted the 2 best defensive backs in the draft this past year.
And they got him at, 22 and 40, right? Like,
yeah, and Quinyon Mitchell, by the way, 2 catches allowed for 5 yards yesterday. Had Zay Flowers crying like hell on that crossing route for a hold when that ball should have been picked off. There was no holding on that play.
Yeah.
You just got beat. You got bullied by a cornerback who has locked down everybody he's faced this year.
Correct. Yeah. The hit on Henry, though, from DeJean.
That was serious.
That was nice.
That was like a perfect form tackle. I don't know that Derrick Henry's been perfectly form tackled like that in his entire career.
Yeah, I would agree. And for what it's worth, after the game, DeJean said, like, yeah, he's a big dude. I felt that one. Well, yeah, of course he's a big dude.
I'm sure he felt it too.
Yeah.
I'm sure
Maybe.
he's probably used to making the first guy miss, and then was like probably got up from that hit and was like, "What the hell happened?"
Yeah, where'd this guy come from?
Yeah, that was a beautiful play. That whole play, man, just sums up Cooper DeJean's season. Like it's such a shame that defensive rookie of the year is like a statistics award. I said this a couple weeks ago. It's such a shame that that's the case because you go watch the film on these guys. I don't care if these guys never win individual awards. These guys are going to be studs in the secondary for a long time.
Happy to have it. I really am happy to have it. Let's talk about a little bit more of the defense, break it down just a little bit more. I'm going to give a couple of more Georgia Bulldogs a little bit of kudos before we talk about the man himself, Zach Bond. But let's give a couple more Georgia Bulldogs a little bit of flowers here. N'Kobe Dean, 10 tackles, 5 solo tackles. Nolan Smith Jr., 8 tackles, 3 of them solo with a sack, and 1 of them for a tackle for a loss in addition.
I think he had like 3 or 4 hurries too. He had one of his better, if not his best game as a pro too.
Yeah, which brings me to my next point. Vic Fangio, unlike last year with Sean Desai and Matt Patricia, jackasses, Vic Fangio is, and I talk about this all the time, right? Timmy and I got in an argument about it last year on the show, is putting these guys in positions to be successful based on their game, right? He's putting them in a spot on the field where they're going to be successful most of the time based on what they do well. And you love to see it, especially as an Eagles fan, right? Like you love to see it.
Mm-hmm. So I feel like, the Eagles have all year have gotten beat up by tight ends and running backs in the passing game. And that was still the case again today, right? Our linebackers just flat out aren't great in coverage. The safeties, I'm not sure what coverages we're running, but the linebackers just aren't great at the second level. It's fine. They stop the run really well. Zach Bond and N'Kobe Dean stop the run very exceptionally well enough to where I'm going to be like, okay, I'll let the tight ends beat us in the pass game. This is the best duo of tight ends we're going to face all year, and the Eagles still won a game.
Yeah. You already mentioned his name, Zach Ball, and I talked about him already. 8 solo tackles, 1 for a loss, and half a sack. He gets Jalix Hunt a half a sack as well. This is Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. These are not 2 people that are easy to bring to the ground. They're just not. Flat out. Zach Bond had 8 solo tackles.
Yeah,
this dude came out of nowhere, man.
Yeah, and Ken Brandt in the chat says Blankenship hurts. Yes, but no. I don't feel like that's going to be a huge loss. Reed Blankenship is obviously one of our best tacklers. Yeah, sorry, my bad. We just got the results in from the pool, and I did beat Bill's record officially at 36-12. So
congratulations.
Yeah. But yeah, I feel like Sidney Brown can step up. I feel like, CJ Garner-Johnson, who already is the other starting safety, can step up and fill the void. I feel like our cornerbacks are just in good enough coverage that we can step up and fill that void. Will we miss Reed Blankenship? Absolutely. Is it going to – I don't think it's going to be a defensive changing loss.
I think it's so to point out to your point, Reed Blankenship plays most of this game, has 4 tackles. Tristan McCollum plays the end of the game, has 4 tackles. That clearly meant that they were targeting Isaiah Rodgers and Tristan McCollum. Like we knew that they were going to do that.
As they should.
Yeah. I think with a week of prep, it ends up not being a big deal, especially against a young quarterback and Bryce Young, who, is now starting to show flashes of the talent that he has. But overall has been a little bit underwhelming based on, number 1 pick overall. I think if Reed Blankenship does miss time and it's only a game or 2, I think that's a good thing for the Philadelphia Eagles. But I think Tristan McCollum is going to step in and do really well. I think Gardner Johnson will put him in the right spots on the field. I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, I think, it sucks, right? Reed Blankenship's had a fantastic season. That's another guy we're going to probably have to look at extending in the offseason. And I'm okay with that. But, yeah, so actually let me ask you this, right? First off, I see you got some nice jerseys on the wall there.
Yeah. Got them hung up. I got the B.S.ing sign on the door. I got some autographs over here. I got to get them on the wall. I got to straighten up this Gardner Johnson jersey.
Speaking of CJ, he's on a 1-year deal. If you could only bring back one, which safety are you bringing back?
CJ, and I'm going to tell you why. He was on the team 2 years ago. We made a Super Bowl push. He's on the team right now. It looks like we're making a Super Bowl push. For whatever reason, when this guy is on the team, we make Super Bowl pushes. I'm keeping CJ.
I think Reed still has another year after this year. I'm not 100% certain about that, but that was just like an off the top question. So I don't think there's a wrong answer. I think they both bring things to the game that help the Eagles defense. I think CJ Gardner-Johnson's trash talk helps the Eagles a lot more than people realize it does. He's one of those dudes that you'd be hella annoyed at if he's not on your team.
I like that he's taken the young guys under his wing because Reed's younger than him. Cooper, obviously, Quignon. I like how he takes these younger guys under his wing, and when they make a play and they get up and they start talking, and other guys get in their face from the opposite team, he runs over and he's in there. Like I like to see that. I like the energy, and obviously CJ is one of my favorite players. But if I'm looking at it strictly from a Philadelphia Eagles fan base situation, I'm probably going to lean CJ over Reed, depending on the money.
And without having the numbers in front of me, they could very well afford both.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a hypothetical question, and I would bring them both back in a heartbeat.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's move on to the offense. Jalen, extremely pedestrian, but again, just like I said last week, he didn't have to do too much. Throws the ball 19 times, 11 completions, 118 yards and a touchdown. And then obviously the man, the myth, the legend himself, Saquon Barkley, running away with, in my opinion. I know a couple weeks ago you said Josh Allen, hands down, no talking about it. I think it's closer.
It's closer.
Yeah.
I do ultimately think Josh Allen wins it.
It's a quarterback award now. It's not supposed to be, but it is.
Sure. Yeah, that's why I think Josh Allen wins it. Also, we love Saquon Barkley. It's time for running other positions to be considered for this award. It's not like Josh Allen slowed down in the last couple weeks either. I mean, Christ, he caught his own touchdown pass this past week.
Yeah, that was so, interestingly. It was very funny.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it is closer. I would agree with that.
Okay, good. It's likely that we get Devontae Smith back this week, or maybe they rest him another week because, again, it's the Panthers. But A.J. Brown, 5 receptions on 6 targets, 66 yards. Goddard, 35 for a touchdown, and then really nothing underneath of that. Dotson had 1 catch. How much do you think 11 completions was game plan versus inefficiency?
Oh, I think it's game plan. At the end,
they didn't need to, right?
At the end of the day, you are winning games by asking Jalen Hurts to turn around and hand the football off.
I agree. There's not really, that's the thing is the last 3 or 4 weeks, definitely last 3 or 4 weeks, the Eagles offense has been give the ball to Saquon Barkley and let him win the game. And I like that. I really, really do like that. But at some point, we're going to have to see Jalen. We might have to. Sorry, let me rephrase that. At some point, we might have to see Jalen go down the field and win us a football game. And I still think he can do it.
Oh, I mean, I think he can do it as well. But which Jalen Hurts we're going to get is the real question. But I agree to that sentiment. And, when that time comes, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But in the interim, don't get out ahead of yourself. Don't get cute. Don't get fancy. Don't think you have to do it just because teams have seen Saquon Barkley run now. Teams have seen Saquon Barkley run all over them for like 7 weeks. The Ravens were the number 1 rushing defense in the NFL, and Barkley just went for 4.7 yards per carry against them.
107 total yards.
Over 100 yards and a touchdown.
That's his 8th game this season with over 100 yards rushing. Yeah. That's talent.
Against the number 1 rushing defense, 4.7 yards per carry.
I know this is not an actual contest in a game, but I was excited that Saquon Barkley outperformed Derrick Henry in the rushing yards statistic.
I spaced on that, so people were are obviously comparing Derrick Henry's fantastic season and Saquon Barkley's fantastic season to Eric Dickerson's record-breaking season. Going into the game, they were like, I think Barkley was only like 50 yards ahead of Henry. It might have even been less than that.
It's still really close, but yeah.
What didn't dawn on me is that Derrick Henry hasn't had his bye yet.
Oh, it's this week, yeah.
Saquon Barkley was about 50 yards ahead with a game in hand.
That's nuts. And
so he outperformed him this past week, and Derrick Henry's going to be watching games from his couch this week. At that point, like, you got to think that like this really isn't that close, because if Barkley runs for another $120, like Derrick Henry's going to have to go superhuman multiple games to catch Barkley at this point.
Yeah. No, you're 100% right.
Yeah, I think their projected pace was like 250 yards difference. It's crazy.
I like that. That's a good. I completely spaced on that. That's
Me
good.
too.
I like that. All right, let's talk about it. Give me your final thoughts on the Eagles from this past weekend before we talk about the Panthers.
It wasn't pretty offensively early in the game, but they got it done, and that's all that matters.
I hate the slow starts. I really, really wish that in the first quarter you guys would get it figured out. I mean, it's cool that we know coming out of the first quarter that you're going to turn it on, but like I'd really like for it to be in the first quarter. Throwing it out there.
Yeah, start getting out the big leads.
Talk about the Panthers. Again, Bryce Young starting to show signs of why he was the first overall pick. Thielen's healthy. He made a couple of great catches in that game against Tampa last week.
A touchdown that should have been a touchdown called not a touchdown. That was kind of weird.
That's correct. Yeah, that was a weird call. How you feeling about the Panthers game?
This feels like a classic letdown spot. It's a bad team sandwiched between two really good teams sandwiching it. It feels like classic letdown. Let's look ahead to the Steelers type situation. I don't think that happens. I think the Eagles go ahead and get it done.
Yeah, it's in Philly, right? Because they just had 2 road games in a row, so it's in Philly.
Yeah,
I would say it's more likely a classic letdown game in Carolina. So again, I also think the Eagles come out and get it done. But don't sleep on the Panthers. Took the Chiefs to a 3-point game. Took the Buccaneers to a 3-point game in overtime. Do not sleep on the Panthers.
Yeah, Dave Canales has that team playing really well, and the benching for Bryce Young did him wonders.
Yeah,
it feels like a letdown game. It really does. But ultimately, I just think the Eagles are too good, especially if they do bring Devontae Smith back. That may open up the passing game a little bit more.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about the Flyers, who are 3-0 since we talked to you guys last.
Yeah, we gotta kind of give them their little respect here. We got to give them their color.
Let's see. Making sure. They changed the way we have to change colors, and I don't really like it.
Yeah, it's a bit of a longer menu. I got it up.
Okay. So again, as I stated, Flyers, that's actually almost the exact perfect color. I'm looking at the Flyers thing above me.
Yeah, it's like that more burnt orange now.
Yeah. That's really good. I like that. Nicely done. 3-0 in their last 3 games. 2 of them in overtime. They lead the league in overtime. Lead the league in overtime wins. They are tied for 4th in the Metro Division with the Rangers, who they just beat. So technically, in my opinion, they should be above the Rangers. But they both have 27 points. They look like a good young team.
Mitchkov mania.
Yeah, I mean,
leads the NHL in overtime game-winning goals
with 3, by the way.
And he's 19 years old.
Yeah,
that goal he had to close out the game against the Rangers, that was sick. That was disgusting. The pass he made to Owen Tippett was gross.
That too. Konechny had a great play to get the puck to Mitchkov, and then obviously Mitchkov finishes.
He's also not nearly as fast as I thought he was going to be. He on the breakaway with Owen Tippett where he scored, and then his breakaway at the end of the game there, I'm watching him skate. I'm like, yeah, this guy's not nearly as fast as I thought he was going to be.
He's not one of the faster guys on the team. However, his stick handling and puck control are very, very, very good.
His overall offensive awareness, particularly when it's not 5-on-5, is next level. This guy just knows where everybody is. He can see plays develop before it happens. He knows when the defender's going to start reaching for a stick. He knows when the goalie's going to move. The patience to wait on that pass to Tippett. This is next level stuff. His offensive ability at 19 is insane.
You know who he reminds me of a little bit? A young Ovi.
I just think Ovi was more of a pure shooter.
Okay.
He reminds me of Briere almost.
I think Mitchkov is a better talent than Briere.
Yeah, sure. But play style, very, very playmaker-esque, very, just whole ice awareness, like the guy, and he's starting to put the 200-foot game together too. Now, he's not going to be as strong defensively, right? He's just not going to be as strong 5-on-5. We talk about it almost every
he'll
week.
never be strong at that.
No, yeah, but if he's going to be elite offensively, I'm okay with okay defensively.
I would agree with that. Yeah, I would side with that. The only thing that has the Flyers a little bit lower, and I think this is why they're lower in the standings, is their point differential is -10, whereas the Rangers is +6.
The Rangers are slipping too. They lost again last night, I think.
Yeah, so the Flyers have 3 overtime losses, and I can't stress this enough. If you're a team that's on the cusp, getting to overtime when you've been losing the whole game is a big deal to get a point. And the Flyers have done it a bunch this season.
Yeah, and it's a good sign that they've won most of those games. It's a really bad sign that they've gone to overtime in 8 of their last 12 games.
Yeah, you're going to get tired doing that all the time.
Yeah, so it's good that they have this nice little break, right? They were kind of ahead on other teams as well. Other teams had some games in hand on them, so let them go ahead, catch up, kind of balance the standings out a little bit. But I think the line combinations right now are perfect. I think that the forward groups are all playing together very well. I think the defensive groups are playing together really well. Cam York's come back and he's made an impact. Emil Andre is
I forgot about Emil Andre. Yeah, he has looked better than could have been advertised. He, like you say, Michkov just knows where everybody is on the ice in the offensive zone. Andre seems to know where they're all at on the defensive zone. There's never a time where he seems surprised there's somebody in his area, and that's a real good sign.
Yeah. Some of the young talent on this team is going to be great, and this is all without Samuel Ersson. Now, granted, Fedotov and Kolosov have played like great hockey.
Yes, they have,
and I think that it's going to be interesting to see how they play out those two when Ersson does come back. One's obviously going to have to go down somewhere, but the gold. Every aspect of this team is playing very well right now. And, even if it doesn't necessarily result in a win, the last 2.5 weeks, they've looked fantastic. They've looked like they can play with anybody.
Yeah. And again, it's fun to watch hockey, right? Got kind of sour there for a little while. Jesus Christ. No, and stop. But yeah, for a while there, it was just like tough to watch the Flyers. And now it's fun to watch the Flyers again.
They've been really tough to watch since. Do you remember the 2019 season? The 2019 season where Vigneault had them 1 game away from the Eastern Conference Final.
Yeah,
that series was kind of painful to watch because the Flyers won all 3 of their games in overtime. All 3 of those games they were losing at some point. Like they should have gotten dominated that series. It's been kind of painful to watch the Flyers really ever since then.
Yeah, the fall off afterwards has been tough. But again, this year I don't get that. We kind of saw a glimpse of what they might be able to do last year with Tortorella at the helm, and then obviously they get better. They get Michkov, they get Andre.
I'll tell you what, I checked the other day.
Who's coming back? Oh man, Ellis is coming back, right?
I had seen rumors a couple weeks ago. I didn't see anything else stirring up.
Okay, well, I mean, he's got to come back eventually. They're a team that at the deadline, if you bring in the right type of veteran help. I said a couple weeks ago that I didn't know that they'd be dangerous in the playoffs. After watching them for the last 2 weeks, I'm going to disagree and say that they can upset somebody.
Yeah, we're a quarter of the way into the season. We're almost a third of the way into the season now. So like you're starting to really see like who teams are. And, there's definitely more time for ebbs and flows. But, outside of that West Coast trip, again, which kills the Flyers year in and year out.
Yeah.
I think that they're, a pretty solid team. And Ken Branch has said in the comments, and I agree with this, I think they stand pat. I really do. I don't think that they are at a position where, like, as good as they've played, I don't think they're one piece away from catching Colorado in a 7-game series or catching the Panthers in a 7-game series. I think they have a little bit more time, but I wouldn't give up what you're doing now as far as your rebuild. I wouldn't deviate off of that. I think doing stuff like that is kind of where 2019 led us, and then the downfall afterwards because we had made those moves. I think we stand pat. I think we continue to develop the guys that we have. Owen Tippett's looked better the last couple days. I don't see the need to go get a veteran as of right now. Granted, the trade deadline's weeks away.
That's true. I mean, you and I brought this guy's name up, and I feel like he'd be a good fit on this team. I don't know if he wants to come back and play in Philly, because once he left and he went to Florida, he said, wow, it's crazy to play in front of fans that, the ownership actually wants to put a winning team in front of. So it's kind of a dig at the Flyers. But the Senators are not a good team, and Claude Giroux could be there.
I mean, so when Giroux... So that was an interesting scenario because it was reported, Giroux was traded on a contract year and he was sent to Florida, and he was told that the Flyers weren't even going to make an offer to him when he hit free agency. They were like, no, we're not bringing you back. Like, it's just not going to happen. That was under a different management. If you look at this Flyers team now, if they have a hole, it's down the middle of the ice at center. And Claude Giroux has played center before. Granted, he mostly plays the wing now, but he's played center before, and he is a fantastic face-off man. And he's a right-handed face-off man. That him and Couturier played on the same line for years, and depending on which side of the ice the draw was on, one would take the draw, and they'd go back to their respective positions. I'm not saying that needs to happen, right? I don't think we need to break up Couturier, Konechny, and Tippett. I think they're playing pretty well, but Giroux wouldn't hurt.
That's my point. The right veteran is what I meant, like the right deal for the right veteran. Because he's on a contract year now, isn't he, in Ottawa?
Yeah, I think so. And he's 35, so he might not come at a high price tag.
Exactly. The right type of veteran for the right cost.
And he's still playing very good hockey on a not that great Senators team.
He is. Anything else you got for us before I sign us off?
No, man, I'm good.
All right. Well, thanks for let me try that one again. Well, thanks for joining us again here on our show on the B.S.ing Network, part of the, I screwed that up again. Let's try one more time.
All right, Jake. Keep your going.
It's because he made me say it slower to start the show. Now I'm all jacked up. Thanks for joining us here on B.S.ing Sports, part of the B.S.ing Network, where we do a little BS. We talk a whole lot of sports. Have a good night.